Hello knitters, Barbara Benson here. I'm an independent knitwear designer who also likes to make videos here on my YouTube channel, Watch Barbara Knit. Make sure to check in the description notes below the video, where you will find links to all of my online shenanigans, including how to get my patterns to knit for yourself, how to join the Watch Barbara Knit Facebook group, how to support me on Patreon, and where to get Watch Barbara Knit merchandise. Today we have a swatch lab. As promised, I think I showed the yarns off in a recent live. In case you don't know, the last Thursday of every month, I do a live stream at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, where we sit and chat about all kinds of stuff. And I'm pretty sure I showed this off because they were two yarns I acquired. And it's kind of the motivation behind last week's video where I talked about rayon, because I acquired two rayon yarns. Now, my intention was to do both of them and compare them both in a single swatch lab, but then I realized that would make the video too long, A, and two, by the time I got to the point where I was almost finished with the swatch, I was ready to throw it across the room. And we'll talk about why. Rayon and these types of things have their own idiosyncrasies and challenges, and there's no way I was going to get two 100% rayon swatches done and remain relatively sane. So the one I swatched and what this video is on is the Nuboo. We'll get more details on that. And then we will save the Truboo, which is the bamboo one, which is not Lyocell. The one we're doing today is the Lyocell. We will save that for a later date when I no longer feel rage at the idea of knitting rayon. And please don't take that to mean that I don't like these yarns. It's not that I don't like the yarn. It's just they're slippery and they're splitty and they have their own challenges, as I said. And I could not do more than one swatch for this particular thing. So what this swatch lab is, for those of y'all who haven't seen one yet, is I take a yarn that is new to me and I put it through its paces. I do a swatch that you're going to see shortly where I do some lace and I do some like not quite open lace. I do a little bit of stockinette. I do some texture. I do some cables, and then I do some like straight up mesh, almost like 95% whole sort of lace, to be able to evaluate how this yarn is going to react and behave and find what its strengths are and find what it likes, because every yarn has its strengths and every yarn has something that maybe it doesn't particularly do so well. So, and I'm not saying that makes it bad, it's just understanding what different yarns like makes you better able to have a successful project with that particular yarn. Or if you just fell in love with the yarn, it will guide you in selecting the appropriate patterns. So next we will go to a top down so you can take a look at this yarn with me. Okay, here we have our swatch. This is Brand Yarns Nuboo. It is made out of 100% Lyocell. The eco-friendly production of Lyocell, a fabric made from plants, leads the fiber industry in terms of energy and water conservation. If you have watched my video on rayon, then I talk about the whole how much water the production of viscose takes. This also, see, it says it's approved by Knitted Knockers. Knitted Knockers is a wonderful charity organization where they collect, like they publish the patterns in both crochet and knitting, and then people make them, and then Knitted Knockers distributes them. They are knitted and crocheted breast prosthetics for people who have had mastectomies who want, for any reason, that want to use that type of product. Let's see here. We've got 3 ounces. It's a 3-ounce or 85-gram skein. This says it's a medium weight yarn. It is probably, I'm going to guess, in the DK weight. There's 157 yards in a ball. That's 144 meters. And it's made out of 100% Lyocell. Again, if you want to go back to that video, that'll give you more information. Lyocell is a form of rayon, and rayon is a man-made cellulosic fiber, which means this is a natural fiber. It is made out of trees or bamboo or something like that. It says machine wash gentle, lay flat to dry. So it's got all this, and this is the cream color. It says size 7 knitting needles or a size I-9, I think, for crochet. You will notice that what I have here is a little bit different than usual. Typically, I will have a white blocking mat to keep the background smooth, but since we're working with a cream yarn, I wanted to just use my desk surface, which is a little distressed. It's very old, to have a high enough contrast for my low vision viewers, because the white on white might make it more difficult for vision impaired people. So, and we have the pointer duck who will assist us in locating things. As this said, it's size 7 needles, so that's what I went with. These are the needles I used. I love these needles. These are the size 7s. I regret. This is a regret. I regret I used these needles, but it was the only 7 I had that didn't have something on it. But I definitely regretted choosing these. I mean, they weren't my worst choice because they are fairly blunt, but metal was not a good choice for this. Okay, here we have the yarn itself. It comes in this sort of ball put up, which means that you do not have to rewind it in any way to be able to work from it, and that's a major plus as far as I'm concerned. If you look, I'm gonna play with it. You can see it has an absolutely wonderful shine to it. That is one of the characteristics of most rayons. And this yarn structure is a multi-ply, and I don't even know. Look at that. It's a whole bunch of tiny plies. So let's see, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and if you look very carefully, each of those 10 are actually 2-ply. So this is like 20 plies. So it's that really fine multiply, and this is one of the reasons why this yarn is what people consider a splitty yarn. And what I mean when I say splitty is that during the knitting process, it is easy to get your tip of your needle. Here, let's let Mr. Ducky help. In between for it to do this. See how that went in? It just went in with no problem. I didn't even have to try. So it just means that you have to use, okay, now it's not going to do it, of course, but there, see? You can easily split these plies, and that has to do with the fact that it's all that multi-ply. It has to do with the fact that it is not tightly spun. It's fairly loosely spun, but a huge amount of the splittiness is because it's rayon. Rayon is a very slick, very smooth fiber that has zero grab to it. It doesn't try to cling to itself in any way. The only thing keeping it together is the structure of the yarn. So that is how this yarn is structured, which is why I said I regret choosing the metal yarn. I regret choosing the metal needles. These just were not the best choice. Something more like Mr. Ducky probably might have been a good choice. Something in the bamboo range, because the bamboo is going to grab onto the fiber and it's not going to slip as bad. But Mr. Ducky is actually really, really pointy. Look at that. Mr. Ducky's point is even bigger, even finer. So a blunt bamboo needle or a blunt wooden needle would have worked better than what I used. So here is the swatch. This is the Swatch Lab swatch that we talked about. We start here at the bottom. Mr. Ducky will show it to you. And this is the Madeira Cascade pattern. If you want this pattern, go look up Madeira Cascade. It has been slightly modified to make it non-repeatable, so it just ends. That's why there's like a slip knit on this side and a slip knit on this side and a knit two together on this side to even this out. I use this particular pattern so that we have some biased fabric so we can see how that works. And then we have some lace that's about a 50-50 split on whole to fabric ratio. You've got a good amount of fabric here, so if this was a variegated yarn or a multicolor yarn, it would tell me how that yarn is going to perform in this style of lace. It also, I use this because it shows me how well the blocking points in is going to work. This is the Lyocell, it is the rayon, it held these points beautifully. I was actually a little sloppy with my needle placement, my pin placement, so you can see I distorted this stitch and it has held it. Once it dried there, it is there because rayon has no memory at all. So because I wasn't careful with my placement, I blocked this kind of distorted stitch into my final piece. And you can see where it comes down. This yarn has very good stitch definition. You can see that these stockinette areas, and here's the stockinette here. Hang on, Mr. Ducky. The stockinette here, you can see that the stitches themselves don't fill in at all. We didn't get really any blooming in this yarn, so you can see the holes and you can see very distinctly the shape of each individual stitch all the way across. You can distinctly see the decreases. You can see the shape really here. You can see the slip one, knit two together, pass, slip, stitch over. You can see those decreases. Those decreases are not going to fade into the background at all. They're going to be highly visible at all times. Now, that might change a little bit if you had a darker yarn. This is a white yarn, so that might be exaggerating the effect a little bit, but it does well in the stockinette. Then we move up to the texture, the moss stitch portion, and I'm going to angle it a lot. I actually really liked the way this moss stitch came out. Now, because of the fact that you can really distinctly see all of the individual stitches, the texture pattern itself isn't like super visible, but this really makes the shininess of the yarn reflect in, it's kind of like putting facets into a diamond because it alternates between the stockinette and the pearl bumps. They reflect the light differently and it gives a dynamic element to the yarn so that they flash in different ways. So I think that's a really lovely, I think it does well in these texture patterns. I think it's fun. Moving over to the cables, this is something that I really did not care for. And it could be my knitting style. It could be how I did it. It could be just that it's slippery. Doing the cables, I did not enjoy. Especially the 1/1s because I like to cable without a cable needle. Doing these cables were not my favorite thing in the world. I was dropping them a lot, and you can see this pearl ditch is really, really visible. This reverse stockinette between the cables is really visible and really, it's got huge holes. So I don't know if that's an artifact of the yarn or just how I was knitting it and how I was awkward with the cables. I think that the 2/2 cables, they look really nice. And I think the 1/1s, they look fine. But let me tell you, I did not enjoy this process. So I probably would not choose anything that had like a whole bunch of cables. I mean, a cable as a detail would be really nice. And honestly, I really like the way this top split, where we've got this cross and then it's split, and how it interacted with this yarn over, knit two together yarn over. It kind of flared out, and you know, you could continue it. So there are interesting things you could do. And again, because the stitches are so visible, you've got these cables. I just don't know that cable in this is my favorite thing. It can definitely do it. It doesn't stand up really tall, and that is due to the fact that it is so slippery, has no memory, and the yarn structure, it just kind of flattens out. Like when I put it on the needle, here, let me show you. If you pull it flat on the needle, it'll like flatten out and spread. So that is one thing. And then this mesh. This is the knit two together yarn over true lace mesh. It's knit two together yarn over on the front and knit two yarn over together on the back. It looks fantastic. It really looks amazing. I'm gonna bring it up here. It blocked out beautifully because of the lack of memory and the lack of grabbiness. It's going to hold these beautiful ladders. I mean, it looks amazing. As I said, if I had to do one more repeat of this, I would have thrown the whole shebang across the room. The knit two together yarn over in this yarn on my slippery needle was just miserable to me. I did not enjoy it. And this, you can actually see, I was getting frustrated. Splittiness. This is what happens. There were times, in a lot of times, where I would split and then I would tink and then I would fix it, and I just got tired. And I just was like, I'm just going to finish this and I'm not going to mess with it anymore. And that's where you get, and I'm going to hold it up. You can see here where I've split and they just kind of hung out. So this is like, I'm going to get my Mr. Ducky. Look, Mr. Ducky can actually get under one of those little strands. It's that I missed the strand, and you can see that. And I think there is one I did lower down that, again, here's the back. You can see this looks the same, and the reverse stockinette here does not have the same problem that the reverse stockinette that was made with pearls on the front. So it could just be the purling was a problem with this yarn for me. Don't know. But yeah, but you can see I was getting frustrated with this knit two together yarn over lace mesh, and it was more difficult because of all of this splittiness that was happening. Again, that might have been solved if I had used a blunt wooden needle, but I didn't, and I was annoyed. But I want to be honest about these things. And again, this is not, I'm not saying this saying that this makes this an undesirable yarn. There are many, many reasons that this is a desirable yarn. The Lyocell, the rayon, breathes beautifully, and it's going to be great for warm weather climates, and it drapes gorgeously, and it does this lace beautifully. It's just, you need to be aware of the challenges that it presents and plan your project accordingly. This would be amazing for a t-shirt or a shell or a beautiful lace shawl, maybe with a small amount of cables. If I was doing a tee, I might consider a lot of this texture being fun, maybe even a bigger texture pattern. It is a lovely, lovely yarn. You just need to know how to work with it. So I think that was everything. We looked at the back. Of course, this mesh looks the exact same on the front and the back. It's a reversible pattern. This is a reversible pattern. It looks the same. The back of the cable is always gonna look a little bit wonky. That's just the nature of cables. That's the reverse stockinette. And this, I think this is, it's lovely. I think it's lovely and I like it. And I would love to have like a blouse out of it. Do people even use the word blouse anymore? I don't know. I like it. It's nice. But also a little bit frustrating. Okay, I hope that was informative and that you followed along with everything and have a better understanding of how this Nuboo 100% Lyocell yarn behaves and maybe inspires you for some ideas for what you might want to do with this yarn, or maybe make you realize the yarn's not for you. Who knows? But as I said, I will also be following up with the Nuboo swatch when I have the determination. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, click that like button. And if you would like to be notified whenever I upload a new video, please subscribe to my channel and click that little bell for notifications. Thank you so much. So a blunt bamboo noodle